Right then, welcome back. Morning after. Has it settled yet? Yeah, a little bit. Not looking forward to today. 5v5 will be out later. Joel's going to be absolutely insufferable, isn't he? They better go and win it. This is the horrible situation that we've been left with now, innit? It's like, do we rather Arsenal win a league, and they haven't for nearly 20 years, or City do 3 in a row? It's not exactly the best of options that we've been left with here, is it? Minging. Anyway, let's get into it. What happened? 5 things we learned. In at number 1, Rashford's dangerous. Scored a sensational goal and was the sole danger right the way throughout the game. It was Rashford or bust. He wasn't perfect, but there wasn't a lot of threat outside of him. Desperate for another lethal attacking option. It maybe could have helped out Shaw a little bit more defensively. Up against Saka, I mean, first half, especially Ben White, wasn't much of a threat, but second half, there was probably a little bit more of a threat there, and he probably could have done a little bit more to help him. It might have been instructions with him being our only attacking outlet, that actually you stay high, because if you get pinned back, we're in trouble. Maybe that's why we saw Bruno coming over to that side. That's why we saw Fred come over to that side when he came on. Maybe it was instructions, but it was our sole attacking outlet, and that was it, really. And we talk about Marcus being the only goal threat. I thought Weghorst did all right. I thought he was useful, but Anthony was useless. And I don't think Weghorst is going to come here and score loads of goals. I think he's here for other things than that. I think he's everything else outside of that, actually. And he'll be judged on whether he scores or not, but I think he's here for other stuff. Anthony, just the level of performance and his involvement, it's just not good enough at the moment, and it's been not good enough for consecutive matches. If anybody else was available, I think he'd be getting dropped and they'd be put into the team. 2, Casemiro-less. We obviously missed him. We missed his presence. We missed his calmness. We missed his quality on the ball. The one issue I've always had with McTominay is, as soon as he gets on the ball, he does nothing. He can't do anything. He doesn't have anything he can do on the ball. He doesn't have the passes in him to break the lines. He just pure and simply doesn't have it. And it was a game of percentages, and it was a last-minute winner that it took for Arsenal to take the game away from us. And you got to think that you probably hold on for a point. You maybe don't even concede some of the goals because of his defensive awareness and the character that he brings and the organisation that he brings. We're reliant on a few players at the moment, Rashford being one, him being another. But Tomlin's just a massive, massive step down from him. And the midfield was leggy. It's been in 3 very, very tough games back to back to back. And it started to show today. The squad is paper thin. We've seen Chelsea sign more players this window than we've even got. So it feels like the players that we're reliant on are going to get run into the ground unless the gaffer can find a way to give them all a week off at some point. 3, last ditch. We defended well at times, but there was a lot of last ditch in there as well. Fullbacks weren't engaging the wingers quick enough or high enough up the pitch. They were allowing them to come into the box, and that makes it a little bit dangerous. Too passive defensively, not enough front foot defending, which is what we hoped that we would see under Erik ten Hag. Seems to be hanging on a lot. I mean, the game started off at a right speed, didn't it? A serious sort of intensity as it kicked off, and it didn't really relent. The last couple of games, the same thing has happened, and it's showing the weakness that this squad has and the things that it still has to work on. Seeing games out is a trait that you want to have if you want to start winning trophies. And actually, I think Ten Hag identified that. He did talk about that in his post-match press conference, where he mentioned some things are happening that he ain't happy about, and that being one of them. Bruno MIA. There was no performance from Bruno. Didn't get one. Could have done with one. Outclassed and outworked by Odegaard. Ball retention and being clinical is what you need. If you're going to counter, you've got to be clinical. And that was important today, and too often He was short on both of those. He's in a little bit of a bad stretch himself at the moment. Needs to stop the rut. We can't really succeed without a firing Bruno, and at the moment, I don't think you could say that he is firing. At number 5, I got sympathies on this, but I call it how I see it, and it was negative substitutions. There was an opportunity to get Garnacho on as the game was opening up, and I thought that might have been the right thing. Not pinning back Zinchenko was a problem because that allowed him to come up and then join into Arsenal's attack. If you'd have thrown Garnacho on, I think you push Zinchenko back and you give United more than one outlet, because when it's only Marcus, they can double up on him and they can cover him. When you've got two very direct, very pacey players that are just going to try and get themselves into the box, now that might have pulled four defenders back, and that might have given us the impetus to get a foothold in midfield and maybe push ourselves forward. But the negative subs didn't really work. You take off an attacker, you throw in a midfielder, it's obvious what you're trying to do. And Sir Alex Ferguson's got this thing about trying to hold on to a game. I think he talks about it in relation to Bayern Munich and the final in 1999, and how he knew at a certain point in the game, Bayern Munich was going to take off their two wingers that were quite offensive in nature, and they put on two midfielders, wide midfielders, that are more defensive in nature. And they'd noticed a pattern of Bayern doing it at certain points in the game. So they knew at one point when they make those substitutions, if they're ahead in the game, United will be allowed to gamble and throw players forward a little bit. And that's obviously what he did by throwing more and more attackers on as the game went on, and ultimately it yielded and we ended up winning the game. But what he says is whenever you, if you need to get a goal, put an attacker on. Because quite often the opposition will put a defender on to counter that. And that's not a negative for you guys, because you've then move them further back up the pitch and pushed you a little bit forward. And I think that rang true a little bit at the Emirates last night. I'd like to see Ten Hag be a little bit bolder. I know he didn't have a lot of options, and fundamentally it's bad that we're relying on an 18-year-old to come and save the day for us, because that's what shouldn't be happening. Fitness is probably an issue. Looking at the amount of games, the amount of days, and the amount of players that we've got to spread that workload across the squad, that week's rest that Arsenal got versus us literally could have made the difference between us getting a point, getting a winner. Maybe Marcus, if he'd have been rested in the week, might have actually gone around the keeper and stuck it in the back of the net rather than going down. Those are the margins that you're dealing with at the top end of the table. But no Sancho, no Anthony Martial, that hurt us. Those are options that Manchester United have but don't have on the bench. If you've got Martial, you've got a firing Sancho, and you've got Casemiro, does that game change? And even with Dalot, does that game change? United could have the tools at our disposal, but we don't have them available. It's a disappointing loss in the end. But trying to see the bigger picture, United are in good shape. We're in all 4 competitions. We're going to win something this year, and I think we're going to end up inside the top 4. Every single one of us takes that at the start of the season. So let's take it now, build for the future, get rid of the fucking Glazers, get some owners in that give a shit, and win a fucking lot next year. Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan. See you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.